you. All right. Oh, I probably need my water.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, guys. You're so cute. This is so fun. So my name is Mandi Gubler, and like Landon said, I have kind of this habit of starting businesses unintentionally. So my first business and kind of our main business that we're going to talk about is called Vintage Revivals. So anyone ever read a blog? Maybe not. Does anyone use Instagram? Yeah, okay, cool. So more than 10 years ago, in 2010, I started a blog called Vintage Revivals. And at the time, blogs were brand new. There were like 5. Just kidding, there were more than 5. But it felt like there were 5. And I kind of just started doing projects and documenting it. And at the time, it was not a business. Like, you made no money. You did it for the love of community and connection and all of those great things. And so I'm going to talk about how we started there and turned it into this whole universe and life that we created because we started a blog. So the riveting, pivoting, and wildly resilient journey of being a human running a business. Does anyone ever get overwhelmed with like all the things that go wrong when you're running a business? Yes? Oh my gosh, you guys, I have such great news for you. Things will always, forever go wrong. And as stressful as it can be in the moment, my husband and I always talk about how we just fail our way through everything. And the best part about that is that you're always learning new things. Like, I learned what not to do so much. And when you learn what not to do, you then have this whole path opened up in front of you of different choices to make, different directions to go, and it's just a really beautiful journey of becoming a different person through running businesses. Okay, so let me give you, this is a little preview of what Vintage Revivals looks like now. We do a ton of DIY projects, huge renovations, kind of known for doing like these fearless DIY projects. So doing things like, well, we'll get into all the fun projects. So Vintage Revival started in 2010, and in 2020, January of 2020, we started a second company called Happy Houseplant. So we're going to talk about what it looks like to start going one direction and then kind of feel pulled to go a different direction and taking all the lessons with you as you pivot. Okay, so we're gonna start at the very beginning. Who feels, and for real guys, like I need like audience interaction, or I am gonna call on Connor Sebring every single time I ask a question. Okay, who feels like stress about putting out a new product, a new post, a picture, like it's not gonna be good enough? Oh my gosh, all the time, right? You're like, people are gonna judge me. This is so stressful. Well, I want you to think about this next picture that I'm gonna show you. Every time you feel like that, okay? It's fine if you laugh, but just know this is where I began, legitimately. Do you guys see this table? This is the project that started my entire life path. It was an $8 end table that I got at the DI. I was so excited about it. I brought it home. I was like, yes, I am gonna spray paint this bright yellow. I knew nothing about any sort of project, anything. I didn't know that when you spray paint things, you should put something down on the driveway. And if you don't, then you'll have a yellow square on your driveway. I knew nothing. I didn't know that when you prime a piece of furniture, you need to shake the can of primer for a long time. Otherwise, it has the texture of rhino liner. Did not know that. This was, guys, this was like my after picture. This was like the best I could do with my iPhone 3. Please note the crap on the chair in the background, and this is how I styled it, with like the owl, okay? This was like it. I was so proud of this table. And now I look at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I need to write like amends to everyone who had to experience this as like a standard of design, because it's so bad. But I did not know that it was bad. At the time, I thought it was like the most amazing thing ever. I could not get enough. I would go to the DI. At the time, we lived right down the road from the DI. So every time I left my house, I would drive up the street, pull into the parking lot. I had a loop that I knew like exactly what I needed to make through the DI store to see what new things they had gotten. And I bought so much furniture and crap that I was so excited to turn into my own. I had no business starting a blog and telling someone how to do any of this, because this wasn't just like me posting this picture and being like, look at how amazing I am. This was me telling people step by step how to do this to their own furniture. Like, why? I don't know. But the great news is that I'm super grateful for is that I didn't know. I didn't know that it wasn't, I mean, everyone thought it was great. I look back now and I'm a little horrified, but it's fine. So over the course of the next 6 years, each project that I did got a little bit bigger and a little bit more ambitious. One that stands out in my mind, I should have put a picture in it. I thought it was the most inventive thing you could ever do. And I was shocked, literally shocked, that no one had come up with this idea before. But I found an old little nightstand and I Mod Podged tinfoil onto it. And I thought that it looked like something from Restoration Hardware. Does anyone know what Restoration Hardware is? Guys, it is like the most beautiful, high-end, gorgeous furniture. This thing looks like it had survived the apocalypse. Like, it was not the same at all. But I loved it and I didn't care. And I got so many pictures from people who Mod Podged furniture in their house, like their bathroom cabinets. Some people did their kitchen, like, oh, it's fine. Now I'm like, why did we do this, you guys? The first project that I ever did that really felt like I was aligned, like my truest, best creativity was like, manifest. I really wanted a white and gray zebra print rug. And at the time, we had $0, you guys. Like, I'm not even joking. We had $0. And the rug that I wanted, I remember it so clearly, was on Wayfair, and it was $450. And there was not a chance that that was going to happen in my life. Like it wasn't even an option. So I went to Home Depot and I got a white rug and I got a gray rug and I flipped one of them over and I drew what I thought looked like a zebra print pattern on the back, and I cut it apart, and then I took those pieces that I cut out and I used them as a template on the back of the other rug, and I cut it apart, and then I used carpet tape to tape the two hodgepodge rugs together. And it was a zebra print rug, and I was so proud of it. Let's see, I have a picture. So this is the zebra print rug. And I was like, this is amazing, I'm gonna change the world with this idea. Like, this is so great. Luckily, over the years, as I exercised my creativity and I found what rang true inside my soul and felt right to me, my style transformed and actually became like something that I like and that I'm not so embarrassed. So this is our house. This is the MLS listing when we bought our house. And then this was like the first year and a half of Vintage Revivals. Then we turned into this. And then I really wanted to restore like a cool old building, like a loft somewhere. But that doesn't exist in southern Utah, right? And so we put brick on all the walls in the living room so that it felt like a cool loft space. Isn't that so fun? Okay. The really great thing about this is as we were doing these projects, we'd get different opportunities. So making money with content creation can come from a few different sources. So for Vintage Revivals specifically, we made most of our money with sponsors. So we would partner with Home Depot, with Sherwin-Williams, with Frog Tape, and we would create a project for them to showcase their products or talk about something new coming out. And that is how we made the majority of our income. This is a room that I did for my daughter, and this is the MLS listing. This was never our house. Just the walls and the floor were ours. But this was a project that we did for Sherwin-Williams that was so fun and so creative and was featured in HGTV magazine, and Target tried to copy it for one of their ad campaigns. It was like the best pitchfork mob that 2012 could like muster. Everyone was like, we're never shopping at Target again. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We don't need to go that far, guys. It's gonna be fine. So that was how we made most of our money. You can also make money running ads on your site. So the more traffic you get to your blog, you make money off of that. And so as we were doing these projects and building these beautiful spaces and I was really figuring out who I was. We did a lot of really cool, fun projects. So one of my favorite ones that we do every year with Sherwin-Williams is their Color of the Year announcement. So this was one of the Color of the Year announcements in like 2016 probably. And it's just so great. This is a cute little vintage camper that we restored with Home Depot. And we got to take it around and show it at a bunch of different places, and it was so fun. And now it's sitting parked at my house and has not been moved for a very long time. Okay. The best thing though that I can say is that year after year, as the projects got bigger and the contracts got bigger and the pressure got bigger, I feel like it really gave me a lot of energy to transform these spaces and do these projects that I probably wouldn't have ever taken the time to do, right? And I'm so grateful that this was our business, that this content creation was it, because it, when you start a new business, when I started Vintage Revivals, as you could tell from my very first picture, there is not a photographer that was invited to the party. Like, it was just me. And I had to hone and develop the skills to be able to take really beautiful interior pictures. And I had to learn to write, and I had to learn to optimize things for SEO, and I had to learn how to negotiate contracts, and all of those things created this really great situation where I have a lot of skills to do whatever needs to be done, which is wonderful, except when you talk to my husband and then he says that I'm a bottleneck and that I have to delegate things. That's the best part of the whole thing. Okay, so in 2016, my friend Megan called me. She is a real estate agent. And she called me to get a phone number for a girl that lived in Salt Lake. And she was telling me about this building, this big commercial building in Santa Clara that she was listing. She's like, it'd be such a cool coffee shop or like photo studio. And she's telling me about it, and I was like, oh, I want to see it. It sounds really cool, just because I'm like so nosy. And I walked in to this old, like so crumbly and sad looking building, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is supposed to be my house. So I called my husband Court, and I was like, Court, you are not gonna believe what I just found. And he was like, hell no. No, we are not doing this. And I was like, oh my gosh, but it's so perfect and it's so amazing. And he was like, listen, if you can figure out how to make this work, I am on board, but like, I'm not doing any of it. And I was like, okay, done. That is all the permission that I need. So this is what the Merc looked like when we got it. It is 4,500 square feet. There's like 2 parts to the building. This is what we like to call phase 2. It's all Adobe. You can see all the original windows are boarded up and stuccoed on the outside. It was a mess. And there were a lot of really huge things that we had to do to be able to like get a loan for it and pass phase 2 environmental testing that is absolutely terrifying if you fail. Like, it will bankrupt your grandchildren. And I literally loved every single second of it. It was like this building and I had a soul contract. Like, this is supposed to be my house. This is supposed to be my space. This is something I am supposed to save. And the really beautiful thing about it is that we were able to do all of that, and it was our business doing it, documenting every step of the renovation. And let's see. This is what we've turned it into. Okay, so I have to go back. So if you look right here on this picture, this is our kitchen. If you ever come over to the Merc, our fridge is right here. This right here is this. And we worked our butts off, turning it into the most beautiful place in the entire world. I always tell Court, like, there is not a single place on the planet that I would rather live than at the Merc. Like, someone could be like, I will trade you this $30 million house. And I would be like, no. And Court would be like, why? Why are you doing this to us? But every single part of it is ours. We did it. All of the floor is raw maple that we hand laid the pattern and like routed all of the edges. We made all of the tile for our bathroom, like all of these things. And because we had this super clear vision of where we were going with it, we were able to get really great sponsors on board. We worked with Anderson Windows and Velux, and Home Depot was our main partner for the entire project. And let me tell you, like going to a company like Home Depot and saying, okay guys, I have an idea. We are going to save this building and we want you to pay for it. You have to be pretty convincing, right? But it worked, and they were so excited to be on board, and it was such a great project for all of the brands involved. And the best part is that as we were working on it, we documented everything. I have terabytes of video footage from the whole renovation process. And so when Magnolia Network came to us and said, we want to do a show about the Merc, about your renovation, I was like, absolutely, where do I send the terabytes? Here you go, guys. And it turned into such a fun thing. I have a little clip. This was the only one I can find, but oh, is there volume?
We are completely bushwhacking, so we're just making tile. We figured out a pretty great strategy for pouring them where we could do it quickly and really efficiently. So we just are casting tiles all day, all night, cutting them into 4-inch squares. It's by far the most intense DIY project we've ever taken on. Only 717 more to go. That's it.
So if you guys have HBO Max or Discovery Plus, or Magnolia Network, you should go watch the show. It's called In With the Old, and we're season 1, episode 1, and it's like the most heartwarming, beautiful story that I think the whole world needs to hear, because it's not even about us, it's about the Merc. It's so, so, so cute. So this is where we ended up with Vintage Revivals. And our renovation finished in May of 2021, and we kind of have walked away from it, which sounds crazy, right? Like you're making tons of money, you have a TV show, Magnolia like greenlit a series for us. Like we will give you your own series, and we walked away from it. So let me tell you why. In 2016, before we bought the Merc, we were trying to figure out different ways to make more income with Vintage Revivals, because you want to diversify, you want to, especially when you're creating content and so much of what you're creating is on platforms that you do not own, like Instagram or YouTube. Diversifying is really important. And so developing products was like top of mind, figuring out what kind of products we can sell. And we dove really deep into it, and we tried a lot of different things, and we could not make it work. We could not make the products work. We had one product that was like a really good like flash in the pan, but by the time we were able to restock, it had already like trickled onto Amazon, and the profit margin was just so tiny that it wasn't even worth the effort to do it. Just a few months after we launched with it. It was crazy. And so with Vintage Revivals, we tried so hard to make products work. I researched it, I learned about it, we tried so many things, and it just wasn't happening. And like I mentioned before, one of the ways that we made money on Vintage Revivals is with ads. So the more traffic you get to your site, right, the more ads are shown, the more money you make. If anybody wants to make a lot of money on ads, you should be a food blogger, because they make so much money. And so part of a beautifully designed space is plants, right? Like you have to have plants to like just finish it off. It's like the frosting on the cake. And I had really gotten into houseplants because I had spent the previous 7 years killing every single one of them because I treated it like decor and not like a living thing that actually needed sunlight or water. And so after I had gotten into them and I was like really excited about it, I could see that there was like this really big chasm between where I was in the design world and the plant information that was being shared in our circles, which was like regurgitated Pinterest, like urban legends. And then the plant people, that everything was so sciencey and overwhelming and felt like there was just a really high threshold of understanding. And I was like, guys, I can feel it. I can fill the gap. I know how to do this. And so I initially started creating SEO optimized plant content for vintage revivals. That was the goal. I was going to get as much search traffic as I could get to the site, and it was just going to be like a little series that we did on vintage revivals because I had no intention of stopping the project train. Vintage revivals was like completely wrapped in my identity, who I was as a human. I was Mandi from Vintage Revivals. That was it. I didn't have a last name. It was just Mandi from Vintage Revivals. And so I started creating this plant content. And then I was like, okay, I wonder if we could do something that was like even more lucrative. And so then I decided I was going to create just like quick and easy digital download guide that people could just buy on plant care. And I met with a girl. She was super awesome. And we decided she was going to help me write the guide. And she was going to do all the email marketing for it. And I was just going to have it on Vintage Revivals. And then as we were working on it, as things tend to happen with me, it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I was like, oh, this is its own separate company, right? Like it needs to be. And so that is what, oops, we're going to go to this. Okay. So as we were dreaming up this new company, she had a lot of stuff, like personal stuff in her life that came up, and she wasn't able to work the way that I needed to work and wanted to work. And so she like very gracefully bowed out, and she's the best. And I took Happy Happy Houseplant and I ran with it. And we started by sourcing our very first product. Now, the really amazing thing, I think sometimes we kind of overlook or forget, is when you're starting something new, it feels like you're starting something new from scratch. But I had a decade of experience. I knew exactly who my customers were. My customers were not the plant people. My customers were the design people, right? I knew exactly the information that they needed to hear and how they needed to hear it. I knew the products that they needed. And so we started by sourcing our first product, and it took us a little while to launch it. We were like hand stickering it, and it was, I should have put that video in, dang it. I have a video of Court like shirtless dancing, like stickering. But our first product is a fertilizer called Plant Food, and it's like the best product on the market. And we share it in a way that makes it really easy for people to use, and they don't need to like worry about all of the NPK ratios and macro and micronutrients. They just need to know that it works. And so that's kind of our plan with all of it. And we launched and we sold out instantly. And I was like, wait, this is what it feels like to sell a product? This is what we've been missing this entire time. It was like I had all of these puzzle pieces that I was trying to make work in Vintage Revivals, and it was for the wrong puzzle. So when we started Happy Happy Houseplant, it turned into $1 million business in the first year because we knew exactly who we were talking to. We knew exactly the products that we needed to sell. And we do everything in like the most approachable, fun, easy to understand way. Right now we share all of our content on Instagram. And so we're giving plant tips and care advice and all of this information all the time, every single day. And then we have our products that fill this need that is just like kind of these gaping holes in people's plant care knowledge. And it is so fun, you guys. Like, no, I don't know how we did vintage revivals and renovation for so long and lived in absolute, complete chaos, because selling products is so much better. I wanted to leave time for questions because I feel like we kind of have a lot of different directions that we can take. If you guys have questions about influencers and using influencers to market your products, if you are an influencer, we can talk about that. We can talk about like sourcing and developing products. We can talk about content creation. We can talk about hiring, all of these different things. I really want to make sure that if you guys have questions, we can kind of dive into them. So that's, I guess, is there anything that I missed?
Oh, you missed a lot. I feel like it's super important for them to, I mean, me and Mandi are very different people. Mandi is like, let's just go ahead. And I'm like, no, let's think this through a little bit. So with launching products, I did not want to launch anything unless I knew for a fact, like we weren't going to have any issues with this product and we're not going to get any bad feedback on it. Mandi's like, no, we just need to go. And it's very important to just go and be willing to fix the problem as you go. Like she said, fell forward. Because if we did it my way, we would never have launched the product because it would never have been perfect enough to be at the level that I wanted it to be. And so by putting the product out there, we're able to actually get real-time feedback, take care of those customers that had an issue, and then continue to advance the product to where there is no issues. So I think that's very important, like failing forward and just being willing to make mistakes as you go.
For sure. We've made mistakes. One time we shipped people live cockroaches. Accidentally.
Well, you don't have to mention that one.
I didn't mention that. But
the first 2,000 units that we shipped out, when they actually put the dropper in the plant food, the markings on the dropper disappeared. And so we had to hurry and find new droppers. We had to ship out a bunch of droppers to people. We just had to fix the problem. But it didn't hurt us because our customer service was so good that we just took care of the problem. And I also think another thing, it's interesting when you're talking about it because when she says we were pivoting, it was just these conversations that we would have with these new friends we acquired throughout the process. Like, she had a friend that started a makeup company and they sold their first product and they're like, you need to sell products. It was just that simple conversation where you should switch to selling products because that's more profitable. And that hung on for about 5 years, and then we moved to the Merc, and we were in an award where a guy that had owned a $50 million company is talking about, listen, you have all these eyes on you guys, you need to have a product. And so it kind of sparked us into this new area where he's like, I can teach you how to ship, I can teach you all this stuff. And it's amazing how just gaining these new circle of friends, these little conversations completely change what you're doing in your life if you're willing to look at it and, like she said, just pivot.
yeah, and guys, we literally fail all the time. Just our most recent product launch was we did some sweatshirts. They were printed the wrong color. I noticed it before we even had a chance for someone to email us and say, hey, this looks different than your pictures. I had already sent emails to everyone who bought that sweatshirt, and I was like, limited edition! We're sending you a new sweatshirt. You get to keep this limited edition one. We're so sorry. We love you. And we just fixed it because that's what actually matters to us. And Court always rolls his eyes when I say this, but for me, I don't care about money at all. Like, I don't think money's real. I think everything is fake. I don't care about money. What I care about is connection with people and being able to connect them with our products in a way that it actually matters in their life. Does anybody have plants? How do you feel when you get a new leaf on your plant? It's like you, right? Like, I'm just here in the background, like, I'm just here to teach you, man. You're the one doing all the work, and it is so magical, and it's so, so, so fun. And now that we have this really successful company and we have a lot of fake money that we can use, we get to develop the most disruptive, cool, groundbreaking products that we never would have been able to do, but it's always one step at a time. Like, you hear like the catchphrases and all the, I can't even think of any of them right now, but like, never give up and all of that stuff. Like, it's all real, guys. Like, you just be so excited about what it is that you are offering the world. And that enthusiasm is so contagious. People feel it. When I show up on Instagram and I am not feeling it, our sales go down. When I show up on Instagram and I am like on fire, excited, they go up. It's like people can tell how you're feeling, the energy. Okay, so does anybody have any questions? Yes.
How do you reach out to influencers to promote your products?
That's a great question. Did you guys all hear it? How do you reach out to influencers to promote your products? So for sure, find out what platform they are on and active on the most. Send them a DM. And I feel like now where influencing is like its own business, figuring out some sort of affiliate program or how product exchange or payment, there's usually like some skin in the game when you're working with influencers now. When I started, guys, I literally did a living room makeover for 3 rolls of blue painter's tape. That was not a good idea. Just kidding, it was such a great idea, but like, it's different now. But for sure, make sure that you understand who they are, the content they're creating, make sure it fits, because there's 1,000 companies that can message me about anything. But if it doesn't fit with who I am and what I'm creating, I'm just not even gonna respond. It feels like they just didn't do their due diligence. They're just like blasting everything. So interacting, because people follow and know who's commenting, who's sharing, who's liking their stuff. So engaging with them and building a relationship, the best. That's, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, the reason Home Depot paid me way more than they paid anybody else is because we had a relationship. Okay, next, yes?
So you've built such a great community on Instagram. How did you go about creating that, or did it just kind of come naturally?
So that's a great question. So on Vintage Revivals, we have about 200, maybe like 210,000 followers. And on Happy Happy Houseplant, we're really close to 220. Just so exciting. When we like surpassed Vintage Revivals a couple weeks ago, I was like, yes, finally. So I just show up. You have to show up. And for me, doing stories is how I show up most naturally, especially on Vintage Revivals. I built a really strong following there because I took people through every step of the process just in stories. But the really interesting thing with Instagram is that each type of content reaches different people and has different purpose and different meaning. So like if you're doing reels, for sure, your main audience that's already following you, most of them won't see it. Reels are for new people. They're like the people that don't follow you yet. Instagram stories are for like your die-hard super fans. Like they will show up and they will watch your stories and they'll vote in this, in all of your little things, and they're like very, very engaged. Static posts are great for your current followers, and for people to save really important information. So we do like carousel posts with really clear, like, what does overwatering mean? They can swipe through and they can read about what overwatering means. And then there's like lives, which are like your like inner circle diehards. So that's kind of, we just market different things to different people, if that helps. Anyone else? Did you have a question?
Yeah. How did you go about reaching out to Home Depot and Sherwin-Williams to get all those sponsorships?
Yeah, so I have so much guts. I literally think everybody loves me and no one will say no to me ever. It's true. Like, I'm like, let's talk about that. So I started by reaching out to them on Instagram, or this was before Instagram. I think I reached out to them originally on Twitter. Now there's a lot of companies that have specific forms, or at the footer on their site, they have like collaborations or affiliates or influencers, and they'll have forms that you go and you fill out. There's a lot of like companies that, I'm trying to think of the right word, like a network where an influencer signs up with this network, and then companies also sign up with the network to recruit different campaigns and different things like that. So, yeah.
I think you were going to conferences like every other month. So she
Not
would go,
that often, yeah.
Well, every 3 months then.
Yeah.
But she would go to conferences where all the bloggers were, and then all the companies would be there, and she would just be like right in their face, like talking to, and somehow she had a way to weasel her up.
Stop! You're making me sound so
To where
aggressive.
she was just talking to like the CEO of Home Depot. It's just like, how do you do this every
Yeah.
single time? Like, you're in the mix.
Yeah.
So she would just grind when she would get there, and they would just create this relationship. Every time she would come back from a networking event or a conference, like, she would have a new idea or a new strategy of how she's going to apply it to her business. And that's what happened with Happy Happy Houseplants. She just came back and she's like, we're dealing with houseplants now. It's like, okay, that's great.
Yeah, definitely like showing up wherever the people are that you want to be around is such a great way to do it. Okay, yes?
How did you actually create your products? Like, did you put some other people's products in and create your own thing? Like,
Yeah, so our first product, we kind of Frankensteined it together. And then creating products is like a whole separate beast, but with quality control and all of that, we ended up finding a different company to source another product from, our second product. And they were so wonderful to work with that we took our first product and moved it over here, and now everything that we do is with this other company, all of our chemical stuff. And the really great thing is that when you like are in it and you're moving product and you're like showing up and you're excited to develop, they have so many ideas when you get in with the right company. So the company we work with for all of our chemical products, houseplants are like 0.5% of their company. Everything else is like agricultural, golf courses, like people who are putting huge amounts of money into product development. And then we get to come in and be like, so how would that work for houseplants? And then they change the dilution rate, and then we have these wicked cool products for houseplants that were originally developed, not for houseplants. And we get to like benefit from it. It's so amazing. Yes?
How have you found the time frame from going from like product conception to like final shipping?
That's a great
How long does
question.
that take?
It depends on the product. We have a product that we've been working on for 2 years that we've just been in like EPA approvals, and like it's just been forever. If it's something where we did, I'm trying to think, what's like a fast product that we did? Oh, I know. I wanted like a really quick and easy add-on in a shopping cart to just like increase the AOV a little bit. And so I got with my graphic designer, we made this pack of temporary houseplant tattoos. So she designed them, we ordered the package, put them all together. They're so cute. We sell them for $12.50. They're adorable. And that was like 3 weeks, super fast.
I feel like the starter kit was super quick also because we just white labeled, so all the EPA approval and all that type of stuff, it was already done. All we had to do is get the product to our house and then label it, rebrand it. So that's going to be quick. And also what that does is, it not only is it quick, but it's also providing you cash flow, so you can actually develop the product. And as you're going through that development phase, you can be making money in the process.
Yep. But there's a lot of really great people that when you're like open to it and you're asking questions and you're connecting with different people, we found a guy that has a product or has a company that he sources product, anything you can imagine from anywhere overseas. He can get it, he can make it, he is so good. And so we just now like have such a great relationship with him. Anything that we need sourced, we just automatically give it to him and he like does it all. It's so great. I think someone raised a hand. Any other questions? Oh, yes.
Are you still working with Vintage Revival, and how has that shifted since Happy House Plant?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we aren't really doing much with Vintage Revivals. We still have a little bit of a lingering contract with Sherwin-Williams, but we're not really doing much over there. We've mostly just shifted everything over to Happy House Plant, which is really interesting because for me, Vintage Revivals was like who I was. It was my personality, my core, my identity was Vintage Revivals. And I have a really great friend who is like 2 years ahead of me in kind of the business world. And she was like, you have got to separate yourself personally from Vintage Revivals. Not for like public separation, but like you internally need to be okay not being Mandi from Vintage Revivals only. And so switching to Happy House Plant is so interesting because people don't know my name. Like I just barely put my name in our bio like a couple of months ago because no one knew my name. And it's really great. And also sometimes it's really hard because I'm like, you guys, I have some serious street cred. Like, have you seen me on Magnolia Network? I know what I'm talking about. And so as we've pivoted, I feel like because of Magnolia, I've done, I put this in and I put it in the wrong place. So let me tell you real quick. So we were like very pivoted away from Vintage Revivals, and then Magnolia came and said, we want you to do this show. It has to be projects. And so it kind of like slowed the pivot a little bit, but it's worth it for me because it's just such a great experience.
This is incredible. What a fun project. Hey, I'm Mandi Gubler, DIY enthusiast. Welcome to my workshop. The absolute best part about DIY is that you can make anything your own. In this workshop, I am going to teach you how to make a fluted coffee table. My perfect coffee table does exist. A magnetic wooden memo board. Watch how cool. How to create and install simple box molding. She did it, guys! And a statement-making checkered headboard. It looks so good. I love this project. No wonder this is on every wall in my house.
So the really interesting thing is that the pivot hasn't happened completely. And I think that's okay. Like, it doesn't have to be so cut and dried and like, this is what we were doing, this is what we're doing now. As long as I think you set expectations for people, like they just know we're not showing up over there. And if they want to know what's going on, then they have to follow us on Happy House Plant. So, all right, I think we're about out of time. Is there any last burning questions? Okay, thanks you guys. Oh.
Like, from what I understand, like this vintage revival, like this renovating furniture stuff is also like your hobby. And for me, it's the same with my business. So did you ever struggle to separate work from hobby?
Oh.
Calming down and just like, I need to have.
Yes, Totally. That's such a great question. So our question was like, if it's your hobby and also your business, what does that look like? How do you separate it? For me, I naturally want to turn all my hobbies into businesses because I'm like, there's this thing in our society where unless you are reaping some sort of financial benefit from something, like it can't be worth your time or your effort or your heart unless you're getting something like tangible out of it. And I didn't realize how, what's the right word? Like in it, Vintage Revivals became where it was, I loved it and it was so creative, but it was not just for me at that point. And so I started doing stuff like making cakes, and I was like, this could be a company, guys. And my husband was like, no. So now I just make cake on Sunday, and it's just a hobby, and it's fine and fun and not a business, which is like a huge accomplishment for me.
You're for sure the last people you want to ask about separating business from family.
Yeah.
Because when you're in renovation, I mean, everything was done in-house, and we were just living in construction zone for 10 years.
Yeah. When we finally finished phase 2, the big like Adobe space, and like got a couch, like a actual couch that we could sit on and watch TV. Oh my gosh.
And we just laid there for 2 months. It's really great.
It was like the greatest. I was like, oh, this is why people have living rooms, because we didn't have one. It wasn't part of our space. And so having a couch to just sit on is like priceless, guys. Go sit on your couches and enjoy it. Thank you.